Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2024 Mexico City Grand Prix. Yes, it is race week once again for the second time in as many weeks, and of course, for the middle race of the penultimate triple header of the season. Lots to get through as always, so let's jump straight into it this time with a look at the track and all the usual stats that follow. So last week, F1 was in Austin, where Ferrari picked up a 1-2 finish, Charles Leclerc leading home Carlos Sainz, in a race that ended with absolutely no controversy whatsoever. Honest. But now it is on to Mexico for the 20th race of this 24-round season. A lap of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is 4.304 kilometers long. If you work in miles, that is just over 2.67 and is made up of 17 corners with 71 laps scheduled for Sunday's race. And the race at record is held by Valtteri Bottas, who posted a 1:17.774 in 2021. This weekend, there will be 3 DRS zones in use in a bid to help drivers get some overtaking done. The first zone starts from just after the start-finish line and runs to turn 1, with the second zone running between turns 3 and 4. Both zones, by the way, sharing the same detection point between 14 and 15. And the final zone is between turns 11 and 12, with its detection point about halfway between 9 and 10. One thing you'll hear a lot about across the next few days is altitude. The circuit sits more than 2,000 meters above sea level, and so the air is thinner and therefore there is less of it for combustion and cooling. That has a big effect on engine performance, power becoming less critical in Mexico than at other circuits. Although the power loss is less than it would have been had the sport been running normally aspirated engines, the current turbocharger having to work much harder in Mexico to offset some of the loss. The thinner air also results in less downforce being generated by the cars. Mercedes saying the downforce loss is around 25%, and so DRS itself is also less effective here, and drivers will feel as though they have a lot less grip too. That means that despite the very long straights and flat-out sections around the circuit, we can expect to see closer to Monaco levels of downforce than Monza levels, for example, but top speeds will still be very high, so Monaco downforce with Monza speeds is perhaps the line to remember there. As for cooling, less air is passed through the radiators, air intakes and ducts, meaning the power units and brakes run hotter and require much larger ducts. Teams will also open up the car's cooling outlets as much as they can, so bigger air intakes for example, but this can also reduce the aerodynamic performance and increases drag. And last year, Max Verstappen took yet another win as he led home Lewis Hamilton in P2 and Charles Leclerc, who took the final step on the podium for Ferrari. Leclerc having started on pole for the race, but was unlucky with the timing of the safety car last season. On the topic of pole position, did you know that since the circuit returned to the calendar in 2015, Charles Leclerc is the only driver to take pole on more than one occasion? No? Well, you do now. He lined up in P1 in 2023 and 2019. That means if he was to take pole on Saturday for Sunday's race, it will be pole position number 3 for him in Mexico. Amazing, I know, and yes, I think you can see where this is going. 3 is also the number of dry tyre compounds available across a race weekend. That is right, folks, it is tyre talk time once again. Only 4 more to go after this one, so enjoy them. I know I will, maybe, perhaps. But anyway, the compounds available for this one then are the softest in the Pirelli range, and so they are the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. But they won't be the only compounds on show in Mexico. More on that when we get to the news section of the video shortly. The track in Mexico has a very smooth asphalt, and as it's barely used throughout the rest of the year, grip will be initially very low, meaning track evolution will be high and we will see drivers sliding around a fair bit until the track is properly rubbered in, although it often remains a factor regardless across the event because of the decreased downforce. The big thing to look out for this week is graining, which tends to be high, and Pirelli says in their press release that on the longest straights, the surface temperature of the tyres drops very quickly and the drivers have to be very careful when braking, especially into turn 1, to avoid locking the wheels and of course flat spotting and damaging the tyres. When it comes to strategy, we do tend to see a one-stop race. However, last year's winning strategy was officially a two-stopper, with Max Verstappen starting on the mediums, pitting on lap 19 to switch to the hards, and then changing to another set of hards on lap 33. However, that strategy was heavily influenced by a safety car and red flag following Kevin Magnussen's crash. Had that not happened, a one-stop race for the majority of the field would have been likely. As for the final few things on strategy, the total pit lane lost time last year was largely between 22 and 23 seconds. The safety car really does seem to like to make an appearance in Mexico in some form, with each of the last 7 races featuring at least one full or virtual caution period. Although when it comes to probability, Aston Martin says the chances of any safety car appearing in Mexico is actually at 50%. And the weather could have an impact too, although much like Austin, more for the temperatures than anything else, as rain is not forecast at time of recording. And as is always the case in these previews now, the latest forecast as of Thursday morning is on screen for you to have a look at right now. And your schedule for this one is, once again, a late one here in the UK. And as it isn't a sprint weekend, we're back to the traditional format, almost. Oh, and if you are living in the UK, just a very quick reminder that the clocks go back in the early hours of Sunday morning. So FP1 will get everything started on Friday from 7:30 p.m. BST, with FP2 now a 90-minute session. More on that in just a moment, taking place later that night at 11 p.m. Saturday's action starts with FP3, and that is at 6:30 p.m. with qualifying underway at 10 p.m. And it is lights out for the race on Sunday at 8 p.m. and once again that is in UK time. Now, before I make some more awful predictions, let's have a quick run through just a couple of news stories or talking points ahead of the action in Mexico and, of course, specific to the weekend in Mexico. So first up, and as already touched on, there is a change to this weekend's schedule and to the tyres we will see used as well. The second free practice session will be used for Pirelli tyre testing, with the manufacturer taking over the run plans for all teams, the session being extended by 30 minutes to 90 minutes. Drivers and teams will be required to follow a specific run plan defined by Pirelli's engineers as they validate the softer compounds in the 2025 tyre range, which will apparently be the C4, C5 and C6. Tyre allocations will change slightly, with the drivers getting 2 sets of hards, 3 of the mediums and 7 of the softs, which is 1 less than usual, but each driver will also have 2 additional sets of tyres for testing, with Pirelli explaining that 1 set will be identical to the one available for the weekend and that will act as a baseline, while the other will be a 2025 prototype option, both in terms of compound and construction. The manufacturer goes on to detail that the plan is for the program to include a performance run and a long run for each set, with every team running the same number of laps with the same amount of fuel on board, depending on the type of run. There will be one exception though, and that is that any full-time driver who was replaced by a junior driver in FP1 will only carry out 60 minutes of testing and will have an additional set of medium tyres available to allow them to catch up as best they can on those who took part in the first session of the weekend. All of that means that teams will only have 2 practice sessions, FP1 and FP3, to get their car set up for qualifying and the race, which might just help to mix things up a little bit. We shall see, of course. And there are some FP1 driver changes taking place in Mexico this weekend, 4 to be precise. As was confirmed earlier this year, IndyCar's Pato O'Ward will be back on track at his home event in place of Oscar Piastri at McLaren on Friday morning. Felipe Drugovich will get another shot behind the wheel of an Aston Martin as he takes Fernando Alonso's seat for the session. World Endurance Championship driver Robert Schwartzman will replace Zhou Guanyu in FP1 at Sauber, with Lewis Hamilton moving aside for Kimi Antonelli, who will drive the W15 on Friday morning. That will, by the way, be Antonelli's second run for this season, meaning Mercedes will have fulfilled their obligation to give a junior driver a run in a practice session in each of their cars, and those are all the confirmed changes as I sit here and record this on Wednesday afternoon. Right then, time to make some predictions then, and as ever, please do not, for the love of God, take these too seriously. They're just a little bit of fun. But if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time, guess what? Pretty terrible again. Wrong on everything apart from Norris getting pole for the actual race and Verstappen on the podium but in the wrong place, for a grand total of 1.5 points out of a possible 8. Amazing. Oh dear, this time around, well, as is now the case every week, who really knows? Ferrari were a big surprise to me last time out, and so they could well be on for another 1-2 in Mexico, or they'll be miles off and be the 4th best team. You know how it works as a Ferrari fan, I'm sure. Red Bull looked better across the weekend as a whole than they did in other recent races, and McLaren was still a big threat on Sunday despite being a bit off the pace earlier in the weekend, particularly in the sprint. And Mercedes will want to bounce back too. Once again, I can't wait for this one. With it being so close and unpredictable, this is all guesswork, more so than usual. So here goes. I would love for Ferrari to come away with another win, but I think it will be closer at the very front than we saw in Austin, and it's a track that could well suit Red Bull and McLaren more than Ferrari. Then again, people were saying that ahead of last weekend, so who knows? But with that said, I'll go with a Max Verstappen pole position on Saturday, with Lando Norris pipping him for the win on Sunday. As for the final step on the podium, I'll hedge my bets just a little bit and throw a third team in there with Charles Leclerc taking P3. Quick disclaimer, that doesn't mean I'm writing off your favourite driver, but there are potentially 8 drivers who could make up the top 3, and so something has to give. To kind of paraphrase Martin Brundle, 8 into 3 doesn't go. As for best of the rest, the 4th best finishing team on Sunday, I'll go with Mercedes, simply because I think the others will just have the edge. I mean, obviously that was such a poor explanation, but I think you know what I mean. But I would be surprised if Merc struggle like they did last time out with crashes, spins and a Q1 elimination. I think they'll be more in the mix than they were in, for example, the sprint in Austin. My bolder picks for this one, which as always are separate to my main predictions, are for another top 10 finish for Franco Colapinto. What a job he's doing in that second Williams, by the way. Liam Lawson outqualifies Yuki Tsunoda, why not? And Pierre Gasly reverses his US Grand Prix weekend with a poor quali, but bounces back with a points finish on Sunday. And finally, I don't usually do this, but do you know what I really want to see happen this weekend? Apart from obviously another Ferrari one too. I would love for the home crowd to give Sergio Perez a massive boost and for him to hit some sort of form and grab a podium finish on Sunday. I don't think he will, but given how things have gone this season and the rumours, and they are just rumours as I record this, that he could lose his seat next year, if this is to be his last home race in F1, I would love to see him on the podium on Sunday and go out with a bang. That is it for the Mexico City Grand Prix preview then, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. And to catch up on all the latest Formula 1 news and reaction, head on over to planetf1.com. Now, I will be back on Saturday with the qualifying watch-along and again on Sunday with Stuart for some race reaction. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like as it really does give the channel a boost in the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.